Hello, everyone. Hello, welcome to Wife's Gist. Welcome this afternoon to Wife's Gist. Hello, hi. Can you hear me? Just confirming that everybody can hear me. Can you give a wave if you can hear me? If you can hear me, please give a wave. Don't worry, it's safe. That's just a cough to clear my throat. So we are all safe. Welcome everyone. My name is Olami Dotun. Welcome to Wife's Gist. It's a pleasure to have every single woman here today. I'm hoping woman or anyone participating, even if you're listening in for your wife or you're listening in for someone else, welcome. On behalf of the team, I would like to say a big welcome. My name is Olami Dotun, and I'm the one moderating the conversation today. I'm looking forward to speaking to some amazing women. Yes, some amazing women. Whilst we log on and we're waiting for the remaining people to join in, I want to ask a very interesting question. So like some of the women that are here today, I've got two amazing daughters, and we like to play around with superheroes. So I'm going to ask something very interesting whilst we're waiting for everybody else to join. If you were a superhero, what would you be? So if you can just put it in the chat and tell me if you're a superhero, I can tell you for a fact who I would be. You know, if I was a superhero, I can tell you. You don't even want to know, but if I was a superhero, I can tell you I would probably be superwoman. Yes, every woman is superwoman, so I would be one. So put it in the chat and tell me who you would be if you were a superhero for one day or for the rest of your life. Please tell me who you will be. We're just going to wait for that to come through. So please tell me, please, I want to hear some. I would be Catwoman, yeah? Or I would be, who are the superheroes? Yes, who's the captain? Is it Captain America, the other one, the female one? I can't remember her name now. I absolutely love that character. Is it Captain? I can't remember her name, Captain Marvel or something. But yes, I want to know, please type it in the chat. If you were a superhero, who would you be for the day? Yes, I see that person's chat. I will be Captain Marvel. Absolutely, see her. I would save the world, and I will be strong and beautiful. I see Wonder Woman. Yes, I see Wonder Woman. Absolutely. Wonder Woman. Who else do I see on as a chat? Please tell me, if you were a superhero for a day, who would you be? I have said I will be Wonder Woman. I will be Superwoman. Who else has an idea of who they would be? Please tell me. I'm waiting for more suggestions. Or is it just that there are not that many superheroes? Well, let's assume, even if you wanted to take any form, what are the other superheroes that we have? Catwoman. What else? What else do we have? There's a new one now. I'm trying to remember her name. Is that Batwoman? There's I'm trying to remember the other one's name as well. So there are different ones. Tell me, if you're a superhero for a day, who would you be? What would your name be? Actually, what would your name be? So let us invent our own superheroes. What would your name be? So for me, I would be Super Dot. Super Dot. That will be my name. So if I was inventing my own superhero, please put a shout out there and give me the name. Me, I'll be Super Dot. And I would have all the superhero powers in the world. So tell me what your name would be. If Super F, I see Super F. Yeah, who else? What will your name be? I see Superhead. I've given myself Super Dot. Super Dot. So yep, I see it. Who else? What else will your name be? Can you also give a wave if you know you can hear me clearly? And if you can't, please let me know so I can speak louder. I can speak louder. I've only seen Super F. Can I see more? Show of names of what? Super BA. Hey, I see one. Anyone else? Anyone else? Super BA? Anyone else? Tell me what your name will be. What would you name yourself? What kind of funky name would you name yourself? I'm even thinking maybe Super Dot is not cool enough. Maybe I'll give myself Captain Captain K. Of course, we know what Captain K is. I know who. There's only one Captain K. Even I would have given her that name. Yes, Captain K. I would have given you that name because she is really the captain of life. That's Captain K, someone very dear to my heart, and she knows herself already. Tell me, what name would you give yourself? Wonder Bee. Yes, Wonder Bee. I like that. Wonder Bee. Absolutely. I see that. Wonder Bee. What other name would you give yourself? Tell me, tell me. I think I'm going to change my name. I'm going to go in line with Captain. Can we give myself Captain Dots? Captain Dots to the universe and beyond. I'm loving this. So, whilst we're waiting, please tell me if you were a superhero for a few minutes or for one day, what would your name be? Awesome K. Hey, that's a serious one. Awesome K. Hey, awesome K. If I can shorten that one to AK, I can even imagine on your vest. They write AK on your vest. So tell me what your name would be whilst we're waiting. We've got 2 more minutes to play this game. You know what? Let's even take this challenge even further. Could we tell our children to even draw it? R.O.B. R.O.B. I will tell you guys R.O.B. Of course, I know that. R.O.B. Yes. I will call that person R.O.B. actually because she's always very accurate. She's always very, very accurate. R.O.B. So, you know what? Maybe it's even time for us to spice it up by telling our children to even create our slogan. What will be Voltron? Ha! I see Voltron on board. Okay, Voltron. You know what? You can even tell you if you want to keep your children busy during the time of this call. Let's tell our children to even create, you know what the logo of ROB would be, what the logo of Captain K would be. I'm sure my children will be very glad to create the logo on my shirt for Captain Dots. So I've got 1 more minute for this. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute for this. And before I bring in someone that I'm interested in hearing from her. So 1 more minute for this. 1 more minute for this. 1 more minute for this. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. So anybody else here gonna tell me what their name will be? By the way, while we're waiting for 1 more minute, can I ask, in particular, if you're here, we're gonna be talking about children, embracing our children's uniqueness. So if you have a friend, if you have a sister, depending on the part of the world that she's in, I'm sure regardless of the part of the world, she can connect because we're in the good timing. Message them, text them before we start to say you need to join. Whether they have children or not, every woman should be preparing ahead. Even if you want to drag your spouse to listen in, you know what? Send them a message. This is the time in the next 30 seconds before I start. Send them a message and let them know that there is something that they should be listening to. I'm always excited to listen to anything about children. So please, yes, send them a message and send them the login details. Tell them to register and come and listen. Embracing your child's uniqueness. That is the conversation for today. And now, without going any further, I would like to welcome someone. Yes, they've put the link up there from Wife's Gist. They've said that is the link. You can send it to them as a text message. Send it to them and let them know that they can log in now. Okay, so right, I'm going to shoot right away. I'm going to be welcoming someone that's going to be giving us a bit about her testimony here, talking a bit about herself. I'm actually really excited to hear from her. Really excited to hear from her. Her name is Abiola. Abiola is a very, very interesting and a phenomenal woman. She has, I'm not going to say too much about her because I believe she's going to be saying the rest herself in her testimony. But she's got 2 kids, and this woman is raising the bar. Personally, I've heard about her, and I'm looking forward to hearing from her. She's raising the bar. She's doing what we women do best, but she's not seen any impossibilities, and she sees that all things are possible, and she is embracing the uniqueness in her child. So I'm going to ask her to come on now whilst I mute myself. So Abiola, you are welcome on board for your testimony. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good day, wherever you're joining from. Thank you so much, Alami Dotun, for that wonderful introduction. I was really laughing about what you were saying about me. So it's indeed a pleasure for me to be here and to join other mothers and ladies on this meeting. Like Olami Dotun said, my name is Abiola Adedeji. To the grace of God, I've been married for 10 years. And I'm blessed with 2 kids, a boy and a girl. I have a 9-year-old daughter, Oyinkansola Oluwa, and I also have a 6-year-old son, Ademilade. Yes, like I said earlier, I've been married for 10 years, and it's been a phenomenal journey for me. What I can say is that right from when I had my first child, I knew her uniqueness. Over time, I was able to discover that, yeah, she has special traits God has blessed her with. And so I would quickly talk about my daughter, Oyinkansola. Oyinkansola is one girl that is very caring. She's extremely passionate. I don't know where she took that trait from, but she's quite passionate. Right from time growing up, she was blessed to have companions of a cousin with her. And at a very young age, we could tell that Oyinkan has this motherly trait where she nurtures little kids around her. She was as little as 3-year-old, but you could see her taking care of other children around her. Apart from that, Oyinkan also has grown over the years now. She's going to be 9 tomorrow. And other traits of Oyinkan that we've discovered is she is very, she loves music a lot. I don't know where she gets this music, but I just get to find out singing and singing some songs I don't know myself. Oyinkansola loves art. She likes drawing, artwork, and she likes painting also. She loves science. She's intrigued by science now, and we're trying to nurture that. Apart from that, Oyinkansola loves cooking. She knows when any cooking show is going to be released on Netflix. She follows them. She's planning to bake a birthday cake later this evening. And apart from that, she's also very opinionated. I don't know how many people have 9-year-old kids, but or older. At that age where she is now, she's extremely opinionated, and she gets to comment about everything she gets to see. Even at that's an older man has realized that you have to let her be and say her opinions on issues. That is a little about Oyinkan, but I also want to tell you about my son. That's my second son. His name is Ademilade. Ademilade was born in 2014, and yeah, right from time his birth was uneventful. But couple days into him being born, realized he had jaundice and he had to go back to the hospital. So that is where Ademilade's uniqueness started from. He was in phototherapy for some few days and were later discharged. Demilade was able to achieve his milestones on time without any event. He was a happy, bubbling young child. And over the few years, we noticed that there were some exceptionalities to Demilade. Exceptionalities I would describe as being probably developmental delay. We noticed that Demilade would not speak, whereas other kids of his age were speaking. And over time, we discovered he had autism. But what that has made us to realize and appreciate is that with other kids, sometimes parents often forget to live in the moment, and you just want your kids to go achieve, 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 achieve. We go on pushing them to be able to do this. Your mates are doing this, you should be able to do that. But with Ademilade, we realized that with his uniqueness, it made us more conscious of living in the moment where everything he does, we get to appreciate the milestone he's making. And so that allowed us to embrace his uniqueness and know how to adjust ourselves, not him now, because we can't change him. We believe, or we are sure that God has made him perfectly. and that is who he is. But what we do now is to change our environment to suit and meet Ademilade's needs. And so with Ademilade now, with the grace of God, everything he does is like, it's a blessing to us. We see him achieve milestone, and we laugh at how well he's progressing. And so while many people or many parents are distracted about social cues for their kids, we live in the moment and we appreciate milestones we make. Recently, or let's say like a year and a half backwards, Demilade found his voice and he's been able to speak and communicate in few words. And if you understand, you will realize that when you have a child that is about 4 years old and he hasn't called mommy or daddy, and all of a sudden you hear him calling mommy, daddy, and even when he's screaming in the middle of the night saying mommy, 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 I tend not to get or to react and say I'm missing on my sleep. But I tend to thank God for the privilege that I can hear him call mommy, because sometimes 4 years ago he wasn't saying that. So those are part of Demilade's uniqueness. Apart from that, though, let me just give you a funny gist. Since this is wife gist, I think we can be frank with ourselves. Before I knew Demi was, apart from the speech delay, Demi also has some social developmental delays that is not so conversant with the environment. It can be in its bubble for a while. And so this is just a gist. So there was a time myself and him, we were cleaning, I think we were doing laundry. And like mothers, you know, sometimes we get to forget ourselves. I was just doing laundry and folding the laundry. And in between, I didn't know he was more conversant of this environment. And so in between folding the laundry, I just farted. And the next thing I just heard them say, "Phew!" I was like, seriously, dude? So you know that I was farting and you are conversant about your environment. So those are part of some things that we don't take for granted and that we celebrate. Even him realizing that, oh, mom farted and he was saying, "Phew." I didn't know he had that vocabulary with him, but yeah, to us, it's a milestone and we celebrate that. Apart from that, Demi is, for his shortcom, we'll call him Demi. Demi, we see the beauty that other parents misses, his uniqueness. Is very, very mindful of people's feelings. You can see Demi coming to hug you several times because he loves that the pressure, and is someone that likes to be held close. And when he does that, I wonder, okay, what do you want? But he doesn't want anything, he just want a hug. Or you see him running after me just to give me a kiss. Yes, we kiss a lot. He's my little boyfriend. He's very, very affectionate. Demi loves to know that everybody around him is fine. He doesn't like to upset anybody. And if he does, because at times, like I said earlier, it might not be conversant of his environment. So at times when he runs and bump into you and you say, "Oh, you hurt me," something like you made a comment, you see him coming to kiss where he has hurt you, or he might not have the words. Now he can say sorry. But those are part of Demi's uniqueness that I celebrate as a mother and that we celebrate as a family. But apart from that, also, he is very passionate on his interest. Now we realize, or over time, we've realized that Demi loves Thomas the Train Tank Engine, and we have several editions of Thomas the Train Tank Engine. And now what I have realized, or what I've told myself is, I think he's going to be an architect, because yesterday we were driving and he saw a train track. I was like, "Oh, a train track." I was like, "Oh, so you saw that." Sometimes I forget that he is conversant of his environment. Sometimes I forget that he knows how to label and mention some things, items. And when he just burst and say train track, I'm like, "Oh yeah, Demi, that's a train track." Good talk, good good labeling and good idea saying that's a train track. So identifying that as a train track. So those are some of my child or my son's uniqueness, Demilade, that I celebrate and I thank God for. But not to forget, with our kids, what we do generally is to, we affirm them, we validate their opinions, and apart from that, we also celebrate whatever their talent and their assets is. Like I mentioned about my daughter, She's growing to be a very big girl now. She's like the minimum in the house. You find her all of a sudden. So on weekends, I'm a lazy person on mornings, and on weekends, so before I come down, I've find out that she has gone to the fridge, warm up breakfast for herself and her brother. And by the time I'm coming down, they're already done with their breakfast. And so those are some uniqueness in my children that I thank God for and I celebrate every day. Like every parent, we have our challenges. Our kids can be sometimes, or we tend to compare them with other kids around us, and we think, okay, you should be able to do this, you should be able to do better. Yes, it's good to encourage them to achieve more milestones than they can, but also I would like to just encourage every mother out there to let's enjoy the moment with them, smell the roses as they are growing. Before you know it, they're out and your yard or your nest is empty. So we celebrate our children. I thank God for what Damien has been able to achieve. I thank God for his abilities now, even though he has some disabilities. And one thing that actually comforts me any time when I want him to do something and he's unable to do is from the Bible. And that's where it says that God's plans for us are for good and not for evil. So I don't think too much. I know that it is good. Nothing about Demi is troubling. I know he's going to be an architect or whatever he decides to do. So I don't even bother because I just find myself thinking, yeah, about 2 years back, I was wondering when would Demilade speak, but Demilade is speaking now. And I had a really big worry, as in a long worry. But now I've decided to just turn everything to God because God is the author and the finisher of our faith. He created him and he said everything that he's done is perfect. So that's part of my testimony. I do not shy away from letting people know that my son has autism. I actually celebrate autism, and like Olamide was saying, part of what I do is to support autism parents out there on how to thrive with autism with their children. The journey can be quite lonely for parents, especially if you're in Nigeria. There's little or no resources about how to help and manage children with autism. So what I do is just to share about my journey and also share tips that can help parents overcome the challenges they are going through. Olamide, am I missing anything? Is there anything else you want me to talk about?
Not at all. I think you've covered every single thing. I think we just wanted to hear from your own perspective. Sorry, let me just put on my video. We just wanted to hear from your own perspective, how you've been able to embrace the uniqueness of your children. And I think you've covered that, you've covered that very well. Apologies, any noise in the background. My 2 children seem to be running everywhere. Okay. But just to I'm going to ask a particular question, and before we move, because we're still going to come back to general Q&A, but I just want to ask one question. I know that sometimes when you're alone, and I think a lot of moms find that when you're alone in your own in your house, it's easy to embrace the uniqueness of your own children. But when you have externalities around, especially when they go to school, when you're around other people, and people seem to have this general expectation about children, and sometimes because they don't understand the uniqueness of your children, they almost raise an eye. I almost say they lift an eye like, why is she treating this child like this and treating that child like this? Why is she not treating this child in the same way that she's treating the other child? And so you almost feel like as a mother, I always say to people, I don't have anything to explain to anybody about my children. My children are my children. But my question is, how do you handle that when you're in the middle of externalities, when there are other people with you, and they're almost like they don't understand your children's uniqueness, and they don't understand the way you're treating them? I mean, I know you're not, I don't think you're the kind of person that feels the need to explain to them, but how do you handle in the presence of externalities, and your children's uniqueness, and the school is telling you, this is how your child is, and somebody else is telling you, don't talk to your child like that. Do you want the child to be spoiled? I mean, I know we have women from different backgrounds connected, but how do you embrace your children's differences and uniqueness in the presence of externalities, and that's the question I really want to know. So what you do best in your own home, how do you do it even when you're outside as well?
That's a really long question, Olamidotu. Not a short question, but thanks for the question. Like you said, how do I manage my son or my children outside in the midst of other externalities or people's opinion? Well, I have come to the terms that I actually don't owe anybody explanation. These are my children. And yes, oftentimes they might be outside and might act, some people will say unaccordingly, probably is not acting how he should hurt or how other kids are acting. But before now, I used to tell people he has autism. So that helps people to understand and say, oh, okay, so we can let him go by. But now I actually don't say he has autism again. So when he's playing, depending on if he's playing really rough or he needs some sensory stimulations, he needs to jump or he needs to run around, I actually let him run around. That's my child, and I know how to manage my child. But one uniqueness about Dami is very attentive to instructions. He might be outside playing around. I might let him play around because I know probably he's constricted and he needs some freedom or some space. So what I've done is when I'm inside with him, he knows when I say, Dami, stop it. He stops immediately. He knows when I want him or when I allow him to play, he knows that, okay, it's okay for me to play. So with that, I've been able to, I can manage his behavior outside without so much eyebrow. Even when there's eyebrow, he might just be playing on the floor or he wants to steam. There's nothing I can do about it. I'll just let him steam. And when it's time to get up, I tell him, get up, it's time for us to go, and he gets up. So I try not to let people's opinions affect me or get to me, because the thing they say you will not be able to do is doing them already. So this is just a matter of time. And I know over time, it will overcome all the challenges they have currently. So I don't let that get to me at all.
Okay, I think you've answered the question, just what I wanted to hear. I mean, practicality. Now, I only have, well, I know you have to run, and because of time, I only have one more question for you. And the question is, hold on.
Everybody has children at home with them. It's weekend, so we all understand that your kids might need your attention once in a while. So, yeah.
So my last question is relating to, how old are you? First of all, how old are your children?
Oh, Demi, my eldest daughter, Oyikon, is 9 years old, and Demi is 6 years old.
Okay, so 9 and 6.
Yes.
And so, I mean, in terms of relating with their different ages, right? So what you find is at the different age, as they mature, their needs are very different, right? Oh, yeah. So for instance, you might find that the uniqueness, what they need in this particular period of their life is maybe a certain thing, and then you realize they're able to overcome it. So how do you deal with the changing uniqueness of their age? Because what Dami would need now is different from what Dami would need in 1 year's time or in 2 years' time. How do you deal with the changing uniqueness of what they require? As a mom, you always but I thought you had overcome this 2 weeks ago. How are we down here again? How did we get here? You know, I thought we were done with this. You celebrate every win. So how do you overcome every single and enter the new phase? How do you do that?
Thanks for asking, Olamide. So I think with children, especially when you have a child with autism or just any child in general, I think we just need to be patient with the kids. Yes, we tend not to appreciate the effort that we parents are putting, but we do put in a lot of effort with all our children. And if we stay back, yes, you can see my Demi. So if you tend to move back a bit and just look at on a broader view, yeah, there are some things that Demi does, and I'm like, seriously, dude, you're older than this. You shouldn't be doing this again. But he still does them. So what I do is to try to tell him, okay, you don't get to do this. I'm just going to give you an example since this is a forum for mothers. Just a minute. So he just came downstairs to come and steam here. Thank you. You can go up. Thank you. So some of things it does now, just going to give an example where everybody can relate. Demi is 6 years old and is fully potty trained. Some other kids might not be potty trained. Of recent, I noticed that once it's time for me to just clean up after them or in the shower, I noticed that he has some poo smear on his pants. Just to be very realistic with you guys, since we're all mothers here. And I know at his age, he's supposed to be able to clean after himself neatly and not have that. But that happens once in a while. We all have accidents that we might be comfortable sharing others. We might have some that we might not be comfortable sharing others. So what I do is just tell him, okay, you make a mess, go clean after yourself. You have to wash this with your hand. So he knows that this is something he should not do. And over time, yeah, my daughter might ask of something. Now she's clamoring for, she wants a guitar, she wants this for her birthday. I'm like, see, we are going to only pick one thing that is realistic. Over time, in the next 2 weeks, if you want to get a guitar now, you will not use it. You have an ukulele, you're not using a long while, so you don't need it. So yes, we parents, we know what our children need, but part time, but we should also be patient with them and accommodate when they make some mistakes. Nobody is perfect. We shouldn't expect perfection from our children, but we should encourage them daily so we can get the best out of their assets and their talents. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that answers my question. Now, I just had one last question sent to me,
Sure.
and that will be it. One last question. My last question to you is, do you find, because you have a very unique child, at any point, and this is for another mom that may be logged in and may also want to ask that same question, do you find that at any point the uniqueness of your child has placed any demand on you emotionally, or has made it, and how did you cope with that? You know what, the emotional demand of having a unique, and I'm using that word unique because every child is unique. Did you find that there was it placed a demand on you emotionally, or a demand on your marriage, or a strain? And how did you cope with that?
That's a very big one. Even having a child on the spectrum, the emotional turmoil is every day. It's every day. At times as a mom, yeah, I know he's doing good, but at times I catch myself sometimes low when I think, oh, he's supposed to be able to do this probably classwork and he's not getting them on time, or he's not sleeping like last night, he didn't sleep well. And when he doesn't sleep well, of course, I'm a mom that I might be in my room dreaming, but when anything moves on their beds, I can hear. So I don't get to. Do you think that spanking can help an autistic child? Okay, I'll get to that question. So I don't get to sleep well. It's been a while that we had emotional turmoil in our marriage also, because I am someone that right now I'm supporting parents with autism, but my husband didn't get to understand exactly how unique our child is until a very long while. So it took him to take that diagnosis in. And over time, we had a struggle on how to parent him. So that put a strain on us emotionally as couples. Also, yeah, it's very, very expensive trying to support a child with autism. That will also put a toll on us financially. But there's one thing I know though, and that is so certain, it's been so clear in my mind that I don't even bother. And that is that every time God has not allowed us to be stranded for anything that we need. If it's emotional support, if it's financial support, even if it's resources of people that is going to train Demi or teach Demi on how to overcome his challenges. So yes, God has been faithful and we've been able to overcome our challenges. So one of your questions, what do I do? And that's part of what I tell parents that are in our community, is join the community. Like I said, many people go through this autism journey alone, and it is so you just find yourself crying when you see your child not being able to do something. It's a deep pain, as in a very sharp, deep pain. But what you can do when you're in a community, if you have a problem, someone just posted that a child is throwing tantrums and what should she do? And I quickly responded that just try and give the child options. Don't overload the child. You're giving the child so much instruction that it's confused on what to do, and that is bringing the tantrum. So that's what a community does. When you have a community that can support you, where even things you don't know, you can ask questions and they will, just share light. I've gone through that thing. Once you know you're not alone in a journey, it makes you kind of feel better, kind of. So that's part of what I do. Apart from that, emotionally, at times I'm drained. Part of what I do, my day job, a project manager professional, and that is extremely cumbersome. You see me handling several projects, like 100 projects at the same time. And so once I'm done with work and I have to switch back to home, I'm quite strained. And you see that the kids want to talk, they want to do this. I'm like, I don't feel like talking at this moment. But what I try to do is just accommodate, know that this is a all general family ball. We all have to take our time in managing one another. So what I've just done recently, I also reach out to people. There are people that I know are older than me, they are well experienced more than me, and they make suggestions, get some supplements. I wasn't on any supplements, but now I'm on supplements. Some suggested take exercises. I'm so lazy in the morning, I cannot get up early for the life of me. But in the evenings, every day by 7 o'clock, I take myself, the whole family, we go on walk. And that has been, I've noticed that has been improving my mood. That's been making me more happy. And another thing that I realized that helps me is when I help other people. When you help other people, when you sow that seed into other people's life, it gets you can tend to realize that your life is really not as difficult as you think it is. Yes, at times you might go through some journey, but it's really not as bad as you think it is. Today, I just made some donations to an autism program. It won't cost me a lot, it's just a shopping fee or some shopping amount. So when you do good things for other people, that gives you an euphoria of feeling good, and that helps to, any emotional turmoil you might be going through, that helps to calm it down. And just to quickly answer the question that was posted in the chat, if spanking helps kids with, do you think that spanking can help an autistic child? Now, that is a very, very dicey question. With my child, I'll use my child as an example. Yes, we do spank them. I'm an African parent. Yeah, we're in Canada, and we try to not spank them over everything. We try to talk issues with them as much as they can understand. But there are some behavioral traits that, as a parent, this is because he cannot help himself. And that's because probably he's steaming, he's jumping. That's because he needs to do that to calm himself and regulate his body or his emotions. So that's why he's steaming. So when he's doing that, yes, it troubles us, it bothers us. His steaming is actually tapping, and that makes a lot of noise. Imagine me working for several hours, and once I'm done, I can hear someone tapping, and that triggers migraine for me also. But I know that is because he cannot help himself. So there's nothing I can do about that. Rather, what we do is make avenues or cushion the noise that he's making, probably give him something softer to tap with, to steam with, so it doesn't trouble everyone in the house so much. The other thing we do is get him a trampoline to jump on and exhaust his energy, so that calms or regulates himself somehow. But there are some things he does that needs spanking. And yes, as a parent, I spank him or his dad will spank him. Like you finish eating and you're waiting for somebody to clean after you. No, we treat him as if, yes, he has his abilities, but he has a lot of abilities also. Once he's done eating, he has to clean up, tidy up after himself. And there are some other things that he does that he's not supposed to do, probably opening the door and running out into the door, running out to the street. If he does that after several warnings, he has to be spanked, so he knows that it's a no-no. We just moved to a new environment, and he got a couple of spanking because he will just open the door and run to the street. Or there's a delivery, he wants to be the one to go get the delivery, but now he knows that once there's a doorbell rings, you don't come downstairs, wait for mom and dad to go and take that step. So yeah, depending on the behavioral traits the child is, depending on the behavior, you would know if it's something he can help himself with, or if it's something that is just out of naughtiness. And if it's out of naughtiness, depending on your parental pattern, mine, I do spank my kids. My little one, my daughter, I don't get to spank her because she's almost as tall as me. But with Jamie, yes, we still spank to correct him, to let him know that this is a no-no, we don't want you to try this at all. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, you've answered our question. Awesome. And I think, so that we don't delay the next person, I think you've spoken very well. One of the few things that I picked from your conversation is you need to understand each child at each child's level. And even related to the question relating to spanking, you said, you know what, it's the peculiarity of what the child needs, you know. And I like the fact that you've acknowledged the fact that at different points you've had the emotional challenge, because some people don't want to acknowledge it. But you've also said something which is quite significant, is that you need to build a community around yourself. And that is something that is very key and very important, you know. And I just want to say that I have learned from this conversation, and on behalf of another mom that is listening, and I know that others will still listen later online, thank you so much for being so open and for sharing a part of your life, a part of your children's life, and the uniqueness of your children with us so that we can learn. Thank you so much, Abiola.
Thank you so much, Oladot. It's my pleasure to share. Thank you.
No problem. So please don't go away, everyone else. I'm just going to bring on someone who is very, very special. You know, I know every single person is special. The next person that I'm going to bring up, I remember meeting her a few years ago, and it's interesting because I always call her, I call her a very unique name. I call her MVP mom. And the reason is because she literally almost makes you feel like, look, I was born to do this job. What are you talking about here? You know what? I was born to do this job. Parenting, mothering, I was born to do it. There's no issue here. And that's why I call her the name MVP mom. I personally learned a lot from her, even in things that she hasn't said, knowingly or unknowingly. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's an entrepreneur. She's an early childhood educator. She's a blogger. She loves to write. She runs a blog. She's been married for 13 years. The first time I met her, her son was much younger, and her daughter was, I think, the same age as my daughter. And I just saw how calm she was in parenting. And here I was all over the place. And this person was just like calm and collected. And I just thought, okay, who's this MVP mom? You know, and since then I've always watched her so closely. Herself and her husband have 2 children, and they currently live in Canada as well. So I'm going to welcome, I'm sure some people know who I'm talking about. I'm going to welcome Tolu Adegbite here to tell us her own side of how she embraces the uniqueness of her children. Hello, Tolu, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Dr. Good evening, everybody.
Or rather, hello, MVP mom.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so do you want me to go right in?
Yes, please.
Before I don't know if I have a lot to say. I have some things today to say, but I'm going to start by saying that every child is unique. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. Okay, yes, we can.
Awesome. And I'm going to start by saying with this statement, and then everything I'm going to say is going to be around that. What I would say, love your child, and I'm emphasizing your, Y-O-U-R, because this is the child that you have, and love the child that you have, not the one you hope that your child will become. I will say that again. I mean, what I said is love your child, the child that God has given you, where they are right now, and not where they hope they will become. Love your child, the child that God has given you. And then I'm going to go into, I will read a scripture, Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. I believe we all know that scripture. And what it says is, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart, and I appointed you as my prophet to the nations. Basically, that scripture is saying that before we were born, before anything, God already knew us. He already formed us. And that brings me to saying that we are born with our temperament, our personality, our uniqueness. At a time, people said that children are born as blank slates, and it's only what you put in. I differ from that. Every child is born with a unique personality, with their temperaments intact, You can help them, you can build on what they have come with, you can build on their uniqueness, on their personality, but they're not blank. They have a personality. Most women would say that, would know, if you've been pregnant more than once, for instance. I mean, we do say that no two pregnancies are the same. And that's because you're not, you're not having the same child 2 times. And I've been pregnant 2 times, and thank by God's grace, I have 2 children. And I know that both pregnancies were absolutely different. And when my children were born, when both of them were born as babies, I could tell that, oh, this child's personality is in line with some things I experienced when I was pregnant with them. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. And so that scripture that I read is Jeremiah 1:5, and then I'm going to read 2 more scriptures, and then Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. They are plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope." It means that God already has plans set for our lives. Ephesians 2:10 says that we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the good things that He planned for us long ago, meaning God already had good plans for us a long time ago, before your child was born, before you even thought of having your child. And then I'm going to say, who is a child? If I ask you who a child is, I mean, by dictionary standards and everything, by dictionary definition, I would say a child is anybody, according to, I mean, in Canada, a child, based on different provinces, you would say that a child is maybe anybody below 18 or 19, depending on your province. That is a child. Now, I will say a child is not a blank slate. A child is a unique being that is born with a personality. I think if we all agree or all believe that children are born with a personality, it would help a lot in how we deal with them. And as a parent, I think that what you do with this unique being matters a lot. Like studying this person, think about it. It's a whole human being, a totally different person. And then God just gave this person to you, and you brought this person to life. Also, one other thing is that most of us, when we have our children, we think they belong to us. We think that, yes, we are custodians. God brought them to life through us. But guess what? We're just custodians. We don't own them. So we can't determine what they do with their lives, or what we can't make them do what we think they should do with their lives. We can only, as Christians, cooperate with God to help them become what God wants them to become. We can join hands together with God and say, every day when I wake up, I say to God that these children that you've given me, they're yours, they're not mine. So I present them to you afresh today. And I ask you, God, to help me be all that you want me to be to them. Help me to steer them in the right direction. Not in the way that I want them to go, in the way that you want them to go. And I believe that helps me a lot in how I deal with my children. Now, I've talked about who I believe a child is, somebody below 19, a child, somebody that you either gave birth to, you adopted, or you are responsible for, you've chosen to be their guardian or whatever. Now, if you look at your child from when they're little, you're able to say, I think this child might be outgoing. I think this one might be a bit into themselves, what we call introverts. I'll borrow a little bit from my from child psychology. So 2 theories, Thomas and Chess, they have this temperament theory about children. And like Dr. said, I'm an early childhood educator, so there are 3 temperaments, especially with little children. Some children are easy, some are I prefer to use the word feisty, but the psychologists call them difficult. And some are slow to warm. You'll find a child, you see a toddler, the moment they see you, they come to you, they hug you. Another one turns their back to you. Another one doesn't even want to talk to you at all, no matter what you've done, even if you have a gift for them. Why are they behaving the way they're behaving? It's how they are, it's who they are. They're just born that way. And what do? Do you then say, oh, didn't you look at your mates, look at your friends, they're so friendly, and you are just so unfriendly? I hear people use a lot of words to describe children, and I cringe when I hear those words because we are all different people. You might be outgoing, you might be into yourself, and then so you see somebody, a child that is outgoing, and you think, why is this child so forward? Or you see a child, or maybe you're an outgoing person, and then you see a child that is introverted, and you're like, why are you always so sad? No, they're not so sad. That's their personality. The best you can do is to help them become a better version of who they are. Not just, don't use, I'll quickly say, don't use demeaning words with children. Don't put them in a box. Don't categorize them. Just use words that encourage, that build them up, and not words that bring them down. So I don't know how many of us, I have two children, and they're totally different. They're very, very different. And one thing that I'm learning to do, because it's a journey, right, is not to compare my children, to know that they're two different people, they're unique, and they will do things differently at different times. They will make different decisions. If I present the two of them with the same situation, they will probably react differently. And that's okay, because that's who they are. And that doesn't make one person's approach better than the other person's approach. So I said some children are easy, some are feisty, and some are slow to warm. And that's okay. And according to Thomas and Chess, each infant is different and unique. And this determines how they react to their environment. So the way children react, the way children behave, is about who they are, is about how they are, it is about their temperament, about how they're wired. We talked about 5 love languages. I'm sure everybody has heard about the love languages and everything. And children have love languages. And if you observe your children very well, you realize that they have different love languages. They have different things, different ways that different things speak to them. Some children, it's words. They come to you and they say, oh, you said this to me and they really, really touched me. Some of them just want to hug you a million times. You need to look out for what makes your child tick and what makes them feel loved, and try to encourage that. African parents, especially, well, when I was young, our parents had all these plans for us. If they had 5 children, they wanted one to be a doctor, they wanted one to be a lawyer, another one to be an engineer, and then maybe an accountant by mistake, because you all have to be in the sciences. Or if you went to the arts, then you had to be a lawyer. And as good as, their plans seemed, it is limiting in the sense that God has given us different talents and different abilities. There are children who are meant to be artists, but first they maybe go to the university to study medicine, and then they finish medicine and then start to try to discover themselves. I believe that we are all more open, and we can look at what we think our children are good at, observe them very closely. There's a scripture that I really like. When Mary gave birth to Jesus, the Bible says that Mary observed these things closely. She kept these things closely to her heart, or something like that. Let me see if I can find that scripture. Yeah, it's Luke chapter 2, verse 19. The Bible says that, but Mary kept all these things in her heart and thought about them often. What are you thinking often about your children? What are you observing? Are you even taking note? Are you watching closely? The child that is singing all the time, it's not by mistake that they are singing all the time. What are they interested in? Are you exposing them to the things that they are interested in, that they are gifted in, or you're just pushing things at them? It's very good to expose our children to a lot of things and to let them see the world around them and actually participate in many different activities. But at the same time, it's also good to observe keenly, closely. Why does my child like mathematics and not really like English? Obviously, you will encourage the child who doesn't like English to get better at it, but also encourage them to shine where they have the natural capabilities. When you're in your natural habitat, you don't struggle. You do really well. So, is there one thing that you've observed about your child? Are you helping them to develop it? Are you even talking to them about that thing? Or somebody will say, some people will say, an artist, no, my child has to go to uni. And not every not every child is meant to go to uni or to whatever we have in mind. I'm not saying settle or be a mediocre, but watch closely what your child is good at, what their gifts are, what they're talented in, what they're inclined towards, their natural inclination. Expose them to different things, but be open to help them to develop these things that they're very good at. Every child is unique. You know, I'll make another statement. We set all these marvelous expectations for our children. There are so many wonderful things that we want our children to become, to do. You know, it's like we made them. When you're building a house, you can put in everything that you like. You want your kitchen to be like this. This is the color that I want in my kitchen. This is, you know, but a child is not a house. A child is a unique being, a unique person who God has plans for. We have to learn as parents to release our children to God and just say, God, I know you made my child. I know you have good plans. Remember that scripture I read, that we are God's masterpiece. He has set us apart and planned good things for us long ago, even before your child was born. So ask him, God, you own this child. What do you want to do with him or her? What would you like to do with him or her? You know, Doctor said she saw me as this MVP mom. I'm like, when she was saying it, I'm like, is that me? You know. But one thing that helps me is knowing that it's not only what I do. Yes, what I do really, 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 really matters. Like, it really matters. The words I say, the way I stay my children, the exposure that I give them, it really matters. But overall, what does God say about them? What does he want for them? You know, remember to hand your children over to the one that made them every day. And look at what interests them. Remember Rebecca in the Bible. She was a great woman of faith. And she did what God wanted her to do. When God said, oh, marry this person, she went ahead and did. And then in Genesis 25, when she became pregnant, she noticed that the babies were like fighting within her and everything. She realized she was pregnant with twins. And she actually asked God what was happening. And God said to her that there were two nations in her womb and that two people from within her would be separated. One would be stronger than the other, and that the older would serve the younger. You can imagine how a mother would feel when God says, oh, the younger one is going to serve the older. But she asked God. She listened to God. And that's what we need to do as parents. We need to realize that as mothers, our children are not ours to make into what we want them to be made into. They know what God gives them ideas. Tell God to speak to them, to show them, to direct them, to lead them, to guide them, to whisper things into their ears, and He's able to do that. So I'll repeat a few points that I made. Love the child that you have, not the child that you hope that your child will become. Celebrate your child's uniqueness. Praise them for things that they do that are unique to them and mention it. Oh, when you draw, I like when you draw, I like the colors that you use. It brings your drawings to life. Your singing makes me really happy. There are, just look for those things that are unique to them, that make them who they are, and let's celebrate those things and not push things that push our agenda, our own agenda, our personal agenda to our children. I think at this point, maybe I can pause and maybe just take questions.
Okay, so we have a few questions that have been sent. Thank you so much, Tolu, my MVP mom. Thank you so much. So my questions are, I'm just going to read them. So the first question is, okay, first question, what if, and I know you wanted to comment on this, what effective measures can we use to discipline preschool and even elementary children? So if you're from Nigeria, elementary children will be like primary school children. So what effective measures can you use to discipline preschool and elementary children without smacking them? So I know that one of the things I learned earlier on from you, Tolu, is, smacking and how conversation, how you can have a conversation with a child. So what are the effective tools that you can use to discipline preschool and elementary children without having to smack them? Also, I'm going to add this question to you. It says, how do you manage a preschool who will not sit still, always moving around? So I'm going to just merge those two questions together so you can always address them. Then I'll bring in another question.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. So handling a preschooler, how to discipline a preschooler. So I say this a lot to parents, well, to friends, and maybe anybody who cares to listen. Everybody who knows me knows that I'm very passionate about children issues. And yelling is never the way to go. Yelling at your child for whatever they've done or what you want them to do. I mean, I raise my voice at times. I am a recovering yeller. I have to say that. But guess what? Whatever you're saying when you're yelling at your child is just flying past them. So what I've also learned to do, and what I believe works, even with toddlers, is talk to them about the behavior. Separate the behavior from the child. And some people say, oh, the child is too young and they don't understand. That is not true. Even when you speak to babies, they hear you and they understand. So speak to them about the behavior. When you hear, and let them know what happened, how the other person felt, or how that behavior made you feel. So you can say something like, maybe child A gave child B a bite and child B is crying. You can say to child A, do you see your friend crying? When you do that, you hurt him and he's hurt. Now, don't force the child to say sorry, because when you force children to say sorry for their behavior, they haven't really learned anything. They haven't really learned anything when you say sorry. It's when you make them say sorry. It's the talking to them and letting them know. So I'm going to take you out for a walk now so that we can talk about this behavior. Be careful to address the behavior and not just punish the child. And so somebody will say, oh, you need to have a timeout now. Why are you giving a toddler a timeout? They don't even understand why. They don't even understand what you're doing. But sitting there, but talking to them immediately it happens, and taking them back to the scene of the event makes it register, and speak to them. For instance, a lady said to me, oh, every time I go out with my child, he's running around, he's running across the street, he's not listening to me at all. And I say, get down to your child's level. Don't speak to them from the top. You're high up there, and the toddler is so little, they can't even see your face. Get down to their level. Be at face level with them. Let your face connect with them. Let your eyes connect with theirs, and then speak to them and let them know. When you did this, it hurts me. When you did that, you hurt your friend. Speak about the behavior. And then gradually they will learn the lesson. I don't know if that answers your question, but spanking is not really, it's just a temporary, like, I think it's just you feeling good, like, yes, I discipline this child, especially when they're toddlers and preschoolers. Speak to them, use your words. I think that works a lot. Let them know how their behavior is affecting you or whoever they've exhibited the behavior towards. And then the other one about a toddler who wouldn't sit still. Seriously, how many toddlers can sit still and for how long? The attention of a the attention span of a 5-year-old is about 5 minutes. They're bored, they want to run around. That's what they're made for. Play is the work of children. Do you play sitting down? It's their work, that's their world. They want to discover things. They want to the best way to maximize this thing is to give them things that are stimulating to do, provide activities that are stimulating, provide materials that it can engage with. Guess what? You can give a child a box, just a plain cardboard box, and they will do amazing things with that box. You would be surprised. But don't just leave them and say, oh, this child doesn't sit still. Some adults can't even sit still, and nothing is wrong with them. It's just how they are. So you have to present to them things that stimulate their thinking, things that they are interested in, and then don't box them. Play is the work of children. It's their time to play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like what you said. And one of the things that you said that has struck out for me, and even in what Abiola said before, is the uniqueness of a child. In terms of a child that won't sit still, before I bring up the next question, is I remember when I used to complain about my children not sitting still. And I think it was just about last year, my mother-in-law said something to me that was quite unique, and it has stayed with me forever. You know, Abiola was saying something about how she's grateful for the fact that her son can say mommy, mommy 10 times, you know, from a child that couldn't say, and that's significant. And my mother-in-law said to me, she said it in my language. She said, let me hear word, may it not finish from my house. And what she was saying is, let me hear what, like, may my house always be noisy, that I would not be able to, I would keep saying, let me hear what, like, can I have peace? May it never end in my house. And so what she was saying was, if you have children that are doing what they're supposed to be doing and when they're supposed to be doing it, then sorry, your house can never be quiet. And when she said that to me, she said, you better celebrate the noise your children are making. And it made me embrace the fact that I need to come down to their level. And yes, they are not adults, they are children. And so they cannot sit still. And that's something that has stayed with me. And just to add that to what you said. Now, question, I'm going to bring one question before I bring in the last person, and then we would ask other questions towards the end. We will still have opportunities to ask Tolu and the last person a question. So the last question here I have is, I think I mixed it, yeah. What simple ways can you use to reduce screen time for a 5-year-old and above? And I think, Tolu, you are excellent at this, engaging children. So what are the ways we can engage children wherever you find it, whether you're in Nigeria or whether you're in Canada or in London, wherever you find, what simple ways can we use to engage? And I think you've touched on this a bit. How can we engage children?
Okay, so children are the same, like whether they're in Nigeria or in Canada, and the same tools will work with children everywhere. You have to be deliberate. It's a conscious thing. It's when, I think until my children were like 2+, they never even watched a cartoon, and there were some cartoons that maybe people watched. My children never watched, like Teletubbies, for instance, which was like a staple in every home when we lived in Nigeria. So you have to make a conscious effort. It is deliberate, because there is so much that your children can watch on the screen, and it temporarily gives you like peace. Like you just give the screen to them. But one thing I always say is that when a child is engaging with the screen, they're not really using their brains. They're not using their minds. They're just there like zombies, because communication is meant to be 2 ways. And the way children develop is by interacting and then getting feedback. But when they're watching TV, it's just them watching. And if you're deliberate about it, there are a lot of materials out there. There are a lot of activities that kids can do: coloring, painting, making things, science experiments. Then, I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot. Playing outside. Most children, your child needs to get at least an hour of physical activity in a day. I don't know how many people's children get that. I try very hard to make sure that my children get them, and that my children get that, sorry. And you have to be deliberate.
But can I ask, and I need to ask, because I hear you say this, and I'm trying to speak the mind of moms that are here. You know, sometimes as a mom, coloring, painting, me personally, when you're telling me coloring, painting, I'm thinking, is the work afterwards? I have to be cleaning the table. I have to be tidying up. Once I'm going to, if I send them outside, so I'm trying to speak, because a lot of us moms, we know this thing, coloring, painting, but the practicality of it is why we just give them the screen and say, well, let me have my easy life.
Like I said, it's a conscious thing. It has to be deliberate. And you don't necessarily have to be the one to clean up. Guess what? Even if your child is 3, you can lead them to clean up. You can start teaching them even from when they are like 13, 14 months to clean up after themselves. So we're going to do our coloring in this space. Speak to your children a lot. Use your words. You know, a lot of us are used to just telling our children, do this, and then we stop. Use your words a lot. Let them know that. So this is where we're using for our painting. Make sure that you get washable paints. There are paints that you just wipe and they clean off. So get those ones if you're going to do painting, for instance. And then dedicate just an area, a designated area, and then you let them know, we're going to do this painting activity right now. This is where we're going to do it. And when we're done with it, we're going to be cleaning up after ourselves. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Part of the issue is that we want them to maybe, oh, okay, so paint this. They don't need to even be painting anything serious. You don't have to. Just give them the paint and the brush and the paper or whatever and let them do it. Paper cutting, that doesn't need you. Put them in an area. Let them know that you can do it in this space. Because there also has to be boundaries. So let them know you can do your paper cutting in this place. Bring old newspapers, give them scissors. You're developing their fine motor skills. And it doesn't really have, it's meaningful. It looks like it's not meaningful, but it's meaningful. Fine motor skills. They're holding the scissors and trying to cut. For a toddler, that is a lot, trust me. Even for some 5-year-olds, it's a lot to do. Give them, so many open-ended stuff. Paper, straws, give them paper plates with straws, see what they do with it. These things don't even have to be, they can be like your everyday things that you use at home. Give a toddler tissue, like kitchen tissue. Add maybe a little bit of paint to it. You'll be amazed at what you come back to. Just make sure that you let them know, this is where you can stay. This is where I would like you to do this thing. If you're going outside, I'm the mom who takes her laptop outside sometimes. If I know that I need to work and I want my children to play outdoors, I will take my laptop with me. So there are ways to work around it. It's about what you consider as priority, and also it's about what you consider as priority and what how you want to raise your children. It's very easy. It's the easiest thing to do, to give your children the screen and to say, oh, just take the screen. Yes, but what are they learning? What are they doing in that time that they're on the screen? So
I agree, and I totally like what you've said. I'm trying so that I'm being very, very conscious of the time. Yeah. I totally like what you said. And before I bring on the last person, I want you to quickly comment on this. I think you wanted to say something on spanking, especially with an autistic child. And someone has asked another question now, saying, how do you handle the way Africans term autistic child, how do you respond? And because you're an educator and I know you know about this, that's why I'm asking you.
Okay.
How do you respond if someone says kilo day? I mean, in Yoruba, they're basically saying, what's wrong? Why is this child different? Because in our own environment, we don't see, in where we're from, rather, not our local environment, we see the uniqueness, but where we're from, they just see it as, you know what, why is this child different? They don't see it as uniqueness, and they feel like we need to smack. In fact, in Africa, they will say smack the autism out of the child. And I'm like, I've seen people say, I'm like, what do you mean? That's the way the child is unique. Yeah. I mean, they're beautiful artists, wonderful artists that were, I don't know how to explain it, that were autistic, musicians. There's so many of them. So can you just comment very briefly about this for us, please?
Okay. So before I answer that question, I'm just going to say that I understand that it's a struggle for a lot of parents to be able to juggle everything, and which is why it's easy to say, I'm just going to give my child the screen. But at the same time, you also need to look at how well is my child developing, And then to the question of smacking, or when people say, how do you handle the way African STEM children who have autism, and how do you respond? So generally, it's not just autism, it's anything that is different. And I don't think it's unique to Africans. I think it's common, especially when we don't understand something. I listened to Reverend Sam and he says, when we don't understand something, we mystify it. So because you don't understand it, you feel like it's bad. Or a child is maybe acting up and you say, oh, this child is really spoiled. Or why is your child behaving the way they're behaving? I'm that parent who doesn't really send. And every parent has to get to that point where this is me, this is my child, and whatever else doesn't matter. When you find people who are supportive, amazing. But if they're not supportive, be your child's cheerleader and let them. It's either you can choose to ignore them. That works. You can ignore. You can try to educate them and just let them know that everybody is unique and people behave in different ways because that's how they're wired. You can be the one who educates them. If you don't want to be the one to educate them, then you can keep quiet and ignore them and just face your child and just handle things the way you can handle it. Where you find support, take it. When you don't find support, leave it. And if you can, lend a voice and let people know that children are unique, children are different, and every child is not going to behave the same way. And this might not even have anything to do with autism sometimes.
I think you've really, really cleared that. I mean, do you have anything else to say? You're still gonna get a chance to speak, but I'm being very, very cautious of time. But I like what you said about the uniqueness of a child. Don't bother about what people say, and that's something that I've had to understand. In my language, they say nobody else can know your child like you. That's what they say. Nobody else can understand your child like you. And so a stranger can never know your child like you. So how do you expect somebody coming from the outside that's only seen your child for 2 minutes how do you make a decision based on that? And I really, really like what you said about that. So Tolu, can I have your permission to bring in the last person that is speaking? Yes, so without anything, I'm going to say this to you first. Thank you very much, our MVP mom. Tolu, thank you so much. That's a name that stuck. Thank you so much for this conversation. And don't go anywhere. If you have any questions, can I encourage everybody to please put your questions on the Q&A section, please. Put your questions there and we will be taking questions at the end. And please don't forget, you can still ask your family and friends to watch this later on the Wives Gist handle on YouTube, and they can still join because I'm about to bring on somebody that I always say, let me just say this. When I met Sister Kemi, I always say, if you don't know what to do with your children, go and ask Sister Kemi. That's actually, I remember when I met her when I first joined my church in Nigeria. And in my brain, the first thing I thought was mother hen, like mother of everybody. She is the mother
of everybody. If in doubt, I always say in my head, if in doubt, ask Sister Kemi. And that's actually how I've seen her. I've seen her like a big sister. And what I like about what she's bringing to the conversation today, to the table today, is her two children. In fact, one of her eldest son is now a teenager. So she's seen that, got the t-shirt, and her daughter is almost a teenager as well. Sister Kemi is an educator. She heads the children's ministry at Elevation Church. So she's very, very passionate about children. She's married to Pastor TJ. Pastor TJ is the resident pastor of Elevation Church on the island. She's a banker turned a children's ministry leader. She's an administrator. She has over 20 years working with children. And yes, she's got the badge. She has two children that have transitioned from toddler to everything and now teenager. And I'm really excited. I always listen to Sister Kemi in awe. I'm always like, can you say more? Can you say more? And so Sister Kemi, she loves cooking. Yes. And reading. Sister Kemi, hello. And it's nice to welcome you to Wife's Gist. Hello, Sister Kemi.
Hello, everyone. It's really great to be here with you. Thank you so much, Dotu. I miss you right here, and I love you. You know that.
Yes, I miss you, Sister Kemi. Yes.
So, Tolu has said quite a bit about some of the things I was going to say. So I will not repeat what she's going to say, but I will also come from another angle. Tolu has said that no two children are alike. Even twins, triplets, quadruplets, whatever, they are all alike. And this has to do with what we call their genotype, which is their genetic makeup, and their phenotype, which is the result of the interaction between a person and their environment. So you can have two individuals, two children in the same environment, and they will be completely different, completely unique. And I guess that God made all our children fit for purpose. He made them fit for purpose. And I will be sharing quite a lot of my personal experiences. I have two kids. My son will be 15 in December, and my daughter will be 13 in a month. So she's counting down and telling us that she's going to be a teenager. So everything needs to change. And right from when I was pregnant, my two pregnancies were very, very different. Very, very different. My first pregnancy, I was what you call the baby girl. I was all over the place. I mean, I loved being pregnant, but my second pregnancy was very, very different. Right from day one, right from the day that I knew I was pregnant, it was a different tale altogether. And it was a different experience. And I found myself just thinking about it and asking myself, why is this experience very, very different from, the one I had been used to? I thought that I would have it easy and be my baby girl again. I mean, in my second pregnancy, I was so emotional. I would just sit down and break down and cry for the flimsiest reasons. And at that point, I began to pray. And I told God that this child had better be a unique child, because there's no reason why I should be going through all the things I'm going through at this point in my life, and this child will not be a unique child. And like I said, I felt it through the pregnancy, such that after I pushed her, after she came out, I knew it right from then. It was as if the Holy Spirit was telling me that this one is a very, very different one. Watch out for her. And I've seen her, grow from a toddler to from an infant to a toddler, and then almost a teenager right now. And I will say that both my kids are very, very different. So I'll give you an example. I remember vividly one day I was going out, and then my older child, my son, says, "Mommy, I want to follow you." He was the mommy's boy, and he still is. I mean, I walk through the walkway. If he meets me on the walkway, he gives me a hug. So I'm going out, and he says, "Mommy, I want to go with you." But his sister, who is about 2 years younger, looks at me and says, well, mommy, just bring something for me when you're coming. Immediately, I did not, I made sure that I captured that moment and I understood it very, very clearly that these were two different children. My daughter would not call you to come and play. I remember that when my son was, after, when he was 2 or something, he spoke very early. He spoke right after he was 1. And I remember that he would say, once you hear daddy come and play, all the others, all of us will get up and begin to escape, because it means that you had to get down on your knees and play with him. He needed people to play with him, and he's still like that. But you see, my daughter, she can exist on her own. And I've watched her go from, trying different things with her hands. And so I'll give you another experience. 2 years ago, she came up all by herself. I think she was, no, it was last year. She was 12. She turned 12. And she all by herself on her own. She just called us in one night that she wanted to have a meeting with everybody. Okay, we all went. And well, it wasn't very strange because she has always been the advocate. All through her primary school, she was on the students' representative board. And so one day when she was just in her second year of primary school, she just came and said, Mommy, I need a notebook. What do you need a notebook for? She said that they have a student representative board meeting and she needs to write down all the things that, she's thinking about. And I asked, okay, like what? She says, oh, for example, some of the food they give them for lunch, they don't like it. So she needs to write it down so that she will remember when she's making her presentation. And I was shocked at just barely maybe 6 or 7. And so last year, when she was, just before she turned 12, she gave us a PowerPoint presentation and told us that we had 12 different, she had 12 different things that we could choose from as a birthday present. I was totally shocked. Where she got the idea, I don't know. Her brother, on the other hand, only wants one thing, and he will tell you that one thing. But my daughter came with a PowerPoint presentation and presented and went from each item where we can find it. She even had the Amazon link, everything. And that shows you how unique two children are in the same environment. Uniqueness can be discovered right from birth. I'll give you another experience. When my son was about, I think 5 or 6, our church wanted to do some events, and they said the idea was that they wanted a child to do it. And so I picked him up from school that afternoon and headed to the recording studio. And when I got there, they said, oh, they wanted him, there was a toy at the top of the shelf, and they wanted him to, find his way up to the top of the shelf. There were lots of books, so all he just needed was to stack the books and climb up and get his toy. That was the theme for the event. And so when my son looked up and saw what they wanted him to do, he just started crying. I wish they had explained what they wanted him to do. And I would have told them, no, this is not the one you need me to bring. Let me bring the younger sister. She's the climber. When we had my son, everything, the house was calm, everything. When my daughter came, I remember that she would climb windows, she would climb everything. And once her brother sees her going up, he will follow suit. So her brother needed to see, to see something first before venturing to do it. And he's still like that now. He's not very adventurous, especially with food. If we go somewhere and he doesn't know what he's eating, he will just go and ask for the barest minimum that he can find. And so that is uniqueness at work. Remember that I said that our children are fit for God's purpose. They are fit for what God wants them to be. They fit perfectly into God's plan. And that popular Psalm 139 verses 13 and 14, I like the Passion Translation, which says, I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it, how thoroughly you know me. And sometimes my daughter has come and asked me, Mommy, am I bossy? Mommy, am I this? Mommy, am I that? And I just say that, daughter, you are perfect the way God created you. And children have, different characteristics that will make them stand out. Every child's development is a result of both nature, how they are, and nurture. Nature, their environment, their surrounding, and nurture. So if there's a child who is musically inclined and you don't nurture it, believe you me, the child will not be able to do anything with that gift. And this reminds me of, that parable of the master who was going on a journey and he had 3 servants. The Bible says that he gave to each one as he knew they could handle. He didn't give them anything that they couldn't handle. So he has given our children their uniqueness, and they can handle it, and so can you. So can you. Now, a lot of parents make mistakes of trying to live their lives through their children. So for example, let's say I've always wanted to play football, but things happened, my background, my environment, and all sorts, and I could not become that footballer. And then you insist that, you see, this child, you must play football. But the child doesn't want to play football. It's a terrible mistake that parents make, and that we should begin to guard away from. I have a few friends who have, after their first degree, gone to present their certificates to their parents and said, Daddy, Mommy, this is your certificate. Now it is time for me to go and pursue my own dreams. So we need to be very deliberate. When we talk about embracing a child's uniqueness, it is as a result of intentional parenting. You need to be very, very intentional about it. Now, some parents show disappointment when their children don't meet their expectations. They respond in a different way. For example, if the child is musically inclined and there's a recital or something, and they feel that, well, the mother can go, that's another mistake. I think that we as parents must begin to nurture the uniqueness, the talents that God has placed in our children. And then another mistake that we make as parents is comparing our children to other children. Now, my 2 kids are on different levels academically, and we do not make the mistake of, discussing one person's academic success in front of the other. Sometimes when we speak about it, maybe it's on a general level and all of that. But one of them, is, high up there. Every time she's thinking about, how she's going to outrun whoever outran her, the term before. But the other person, he's okay. He's okay. And so we must not compare them with one another. We must not compare and say, so person, X, SX, you both of you are friends, but he does better than you and all of that. We should find ways to build up our children. We should not necessarily be critics. Find a way to build them up. So how can we embrace our children's uniqueness? One of them is affirmation and encouragement. Tell your child, sometimes your child may come and say, Mommy, am I ugly? Am I fat? Am I this? Affirm your child. Affirm your child. Especially if you feel that, a child gets to that point where they're becoming physically aware of themselves and all, and they don't know how to handle it. That is why we are there as parents. That is why we can easily help, to nurture our children. So we must affirm and encourage our children in our environment, all the children that we see. And sometimes a lot of it also comes from the place of being compassionate and being empathetic. So I remember many, many years ago how I became endeared to children. I think I was in my early 20s. Then I was a banker and I was going to work. I was coming back from work, and there was a woman who sat next to me. There were other young people in the bus, and everybody began to feel very uncomfortable. The woman had a baby, she had a baby at the back, and everybody was trying to wriggle in and get comfortable. And then it was as if the woman also had a smell around her. The poor woman had been out trying to fend for her family, and so people began to feel very uneasy around her. And the woman was clearly tired. And so I asked her to bring out the baby. As a young girl, I said, bring out the baby. And I started to play with the baby. And everybody looked at me and was like, what are you doing? And at that point, I made it I made my mind up that I will never, ever discriminate against any child, because that child is God's gift. I always say that all of us are the same, but our background and our experiences are the things that make us different. And so this child's background, because the mother looked, less than desirable and all of that, and everybody was uncomfortable with the child. But I picked up the child and I played with the child. It was, what those children who they would wear a white singlet for, and then had like eyeshadow under their eyelids. And I still played with the child. And so we get to that point where we must never, ever discriminate or compare one child with another. Every child has a different genetic and genetic makeup, and every child has a different plan that God has planned for them. Now, it also takes us parents being able to discover the uniqueness in our children. Don't wait until a teacher begins to tell you that your child is artistic. I remember that many years ago, when my daughter was in year 1, and they had this award ceremony, and the school made sure that every child got an award. There was something, because they believed that there was something unique about every child. And so the teacher called on each child. In that class, there were 26 children in the class, and the teacher knew each and every one of them. The teacher knew the one who was an artist. Imagine if the parent was just discovering that their child was an artist. And so which means that there's something really, really wrong when you don't know the uniqueness, where you yourself cannot see the uniqueness in your child. And so the teacher went ahead, called each child without looking into any book, was able to tell us each child's uniqueness. And I remember that when they called my daughter, the first thing everybody said was, "Mommy," that, she was like the mother hen. She's the one who will finish her work and turn to all the other people on her table and ask them if they needed help. And she wasn't always like that, but it came with a bit of nurturing. And it came with us also understanding early on to step her down. So she went to school very early. And so by the time she was like 4.5, they were going to move her into year 1 in primary school. And myself and her father looked at her and said, our daughter is not ready. She had fantastic grades. In fact, she was in the upper percentile of her class. But we went back to the school and said, sorry, our child isn't ready. She's not emotionally mature. I mean, this is the child that showed us Pepe when you tell her, sit down and do the homework. Mommy, I don't want to do homework again. I'm tired. And there was nothing we could do. And so I went and asked a few of my friends who were professional educators then. And I asked them, I said, what can we do? Are we doing the right thing? Shouldn't we just let her go to year 1? And the person said, what is a 4.5-year-old child doing in primary school? What? And so we went back to the school and told them to step her down. I mean, when we got to the head teacher said that we were the first parents that would ever come and ask to do things like that. But we knew the kind of child we had. And by the time she did that extra year in her nursery class, she matured overnight. I mean, this is a child that you would be begging her, let's do this homework. The child will finish the homework before she comes home. And so it takes us parents to understand and discover, observe our children. It has to be intentional. You cannot say that you are busy, you are so busy that you are unable to actually discover the uniqueness of your child. Another thing is play with your child. Play. I mean, sometimes I remember, I told you about how my son will say, come and play. And when you hear come and play, all the other adults in the area will just disappear and start, get up one after the other, because it meant that you needed to get down and play. But through play, you can discover your child's uniqueness. You can understand the things that they like, the things that, they are inclined towards. And then we also need to be able to expose our children to different things. Some schools may not be able to give you everything that you want. You want all the extracurricular activities, you want swimming, you want creative writing, you want everything. Schools may not be able to do that. And earlier on, by the time I started interacting with the teachers of my children, they told me, oh, my son loves to read. In fact, the first term that he got into a new school, they had to give him an award because he had filled up his library card. He would bring a book home every weekend. And now I have a few parents who rely on me to supply them books, for their kids, because over time we have nurtured that uniqueness of reading in our kids. And so we always need to expose them to different activities. At some point, my daughter loved to sing. She loved to sing. And then we need to also understand that there's a part of them, that is always there for a season. So for some time, maybe what she's interested in is singing. Encourage her to sing. If at some point there's something else, and so at some point, she was singing and the choir master came to beg, oh, she's a part of their choir. I needed to let her be involved in the choir as an after school activity. And so, I agreed. And I have seen my daughter excel when it comes to singing. Another thing is also that she is multi-talented. So growing up, she has always liked, in the days of Rainbow Loom, our house will be filled with rubber bands. Sometimes I just will not be able to take it. I don't even know how many of those things I have, put in the trash. But every year, one or two, in fact, the one we have at home now is so huge. The box of Rainbow Loom is so huge. And so at some point as well, she picked up knitting, and that has stayed with her. In this COVID-19 season, she has made so many items. In fact, at 12, she has a student. I have woken up at 2 a.m. to find her knitting. And she's telling me, no, mommy, I need to finish this because I need to be able to take the picture and all of that. And I'm wondering, wow. And there I am. I cannot knit anything to save my life. But when she comes and she says, oh, there's this knitting set she saw on Amazon, can we get it for her? We go out of our way to get it. And so now she has imagine a 12-year-old who has a 7-year-old student. She has a 7-year-old student who has enrolled, for her to teach the child knitting. So we always need to expose our children, to different activities, expose them to swimming. I know a child who at 5 would not even get in the pool to play, in the shallowest pool to play. And today, she is a world-class swimmer. So we need to think about it. Sometimes it comes at a great cost to us. I mean, you would think of how, especially if you live in Nigeria, you would think of how you would get from one place to the other, wade through traffic for a child to go for just 1 hour of swimming or something. but but at the end of it, it is actually worth it. And it also takes patience and understanding. Sometimes a child wants to do something, but maybe so many times they fail. It takes patience and understanding on the part of the parent to be able to nurture, the unique gifts that these children have. And at the same time, we need to be able to celebrate and validate our children. Celebrate the small wins, the big wins, celebrate it, make a big deal out of it. And, validate them, let them know that you are okay. It's okay for you to want to do something different from somebody else. It is totally okay. So we need to celebrate them. Don't say that, oh, because I really don't, you as a parent, you don't like it, then you can't be totally involved in it. You need to understand your child's uniqueness. And please do not be too quick to dismiss your child from doing what they're interested in. Don't be too quick to dismiss them, because you don't know if it is that skill that is going to bring them fame and bring you fame at the end of the day. I also know that doing some personality tests will also help you to understand your child better. If you go online, there are quite a number of personality tests that you can take on behalf of the children, or even some very simple ones, maybe from about age 7, where they can answer a few simple questions about themselves. I will give you one last experience before I end. A few years ago, myself and my husband said that we agreed that our children will have boarding school experience. And so we waited until the younger one was out of primary school so that they could go together. At that point, the older one was already I think year 10, year 9. He was in year 9, and the other one got into year 7. And, when they first went, before they went, whenever I was telling somebody, when they asked me what school is my younger daughter going to, I say, both of them are going to this fantastic boarding school. And my son would burst into tears. He would cry. Sometimes I would just say, you're just acting sports and all of that, and I would move on. But I kept all these things to heart, and I was praying about it. He eventually went, but he didn't do more than 1 year. We had to pull him out because he couldn't cope. And when we asked him, he said that he liked being at home with his mommy. He's grown out of it right now, but at that point, I understood him, and I have seen him thrive much better in a day school than in a boarding school. On the other hand, his sister loves boarding school, and so she continues to go to that same boarding school. But at some point, I felt like a failed parent. And so I asked a dear friend of mine, to speak with my son. She's also, she's a child psychology, and she has all these big degrees when it comes to children and, their behavior and all of that. And she came back with some test results and told us that we shouldn't send, that he won't be able to, handle boarding school life, that we still needed to keep him at home and ensure that we put in a few consequences in order to discipline him if he goes, if he strays, and just help him, navigate his way in that season. And so I have 2 wonderful children, 2 very uniquely different children. I mean, sometimes when I want to discipline them, the discipline I let out to one is different from the other. One of them, if I say, just give me your PS4 controller, he knows that's the very, very end. But you see, the girl, most of the time, she's so well behaved that I don't even have to discipline her. But she's the one that if I just make a comment about her character, once I say it, I see it on her face. And I also used to be a yelling parent, but I have since, been delivered from yelling. And I remember the other day, my daughter sat with me and we were having a conversation and I saw her face change while I was trying to correct her. And I said, Olade, we're just having a conversation. I'm not scolding you. And I told her that you know me before. You know me. I will have, started raising my voice. And as I was saying it, my voice will be graduating, to different octaves like that. And, I've just learned that when you scream, when you yell, they just shut down. They don't hear anything. They don't hear anything. It is not, and I repeat, it is not a learning occasion at all. It is not a learning event when a parent chooses to yell. I mean, I know the kind of peace that I have found from not yelling, from just sitting down and having a conversation and just saying, if you don't do your laundry today, if you don't do your laundry today, you're in trouble. You know, they know the consequences already. Once I gather all of their gadgets and I just, and I have also, we have come to a point where, you know, the kind of training that I have given my children is such that I can trust them. And at some point, I asked them, is there anything that you think that you have done that you think that if I know about, you will be, you know, you will be ashamed for me to know about? And they said no. And I'm the kind of parent who says, I'm taking this and I'm going to, you know, I'm going to confiscate an item and I will put it on the table and you must not touch it. And so let's understand the uniqueness of our children. And for the better part, parents need to pay attention to their children. Pay attention to your children. That is the only way the only way you will be able to discover how uniquely God has blessed you with the gifts that He has given to you. Thank you so much.
Sister Kemi. Thank you so much, Sister Kemi. I was listening very actively. In fact, at a point, my daughter came in and she was smiling, seeing that it was you. I think all the children seem to know that it's you. Thank you so much for all those little notes here and there. I'm just gonna ask for everyone that's listening to please give us about 10 more minutes or 5 more minutes, and then we will be rounding off. Just for us to soak in and get a few questions from Sister Kemi. Sister Kemi, I'm gonna ask you because I know that you, like I always say, you are like mother hen, right? So you see, I mean, beyond your own children, you're like the mother for so many other children, and I know you have different experiences with children, and I want to ask, you know, I mean, somebody asked me a question here, how can I stop yelling? It's killing. Yes, that's one question. But see, I would like to, this parenting thing, it's a big deal. Sometimes I'm like, I almost want to pull my hair out and say, that's almost what I almost want to do. Sometimes these children, they just don't get it. In fact, you almost want to, you almost feel like, have I failed? I like the fact that you said something in your conversation where you're like, have I failed as a parent? But I know you have seen different characteristics. In fact, I will say of one experience. I remember I saw you one time. I think I saw you. There was a child had done something wrong. The parent was losing it. And I almost saw you calming the parent down and correcting the child and resolving the matter. And I was looking at you guys and I was like, this one is a different world, Abby. Because left to me, I would have added to the parents' salt and anger and helped the parents to magnify the situation. That's what I would have done. But my point is, sometimes the children just don't get it. What do you do with a child that just doesn't get it? I'm serious. Like sometimes you almost feel like you want to pull your whole hair out. And that is the reality of parenting. Haven't done all. What else do you do? Haven't done all. You have thought, you have spoken, you have calmed down, what else can you do? From your experience with other parents.
Okay, so let me start with that question about yelling. I think that yelling is an intentional thing. It's an intentional thing. Like I said that I was at the point where I would, I had to have a conversation with them. And we sat down and I said, they asked me, why do I yell? And I said that it gets to me when I have said something once, twice, 3 times, and then maybe, I will be yelling the 5th time. So for somebody like me, my pain threshold is very, very high. You would have really, like, let me use Bible words, your cup of iniquity would have been very, very full before I really react. And so I thought that for me, yelling, stopping my yelling came with us understanding it. And then I went from just completely losing it and yelling and, you know, making a mess of everything to just calming down every time a child does something. You know, sometime last week, some video went viral and there was a little boy who had done something and the mother was recording him and he was telling the mother, "Mommy, please calm down." And I think that's what we mothers, we parents need to do. We need to calm down. Sometimes a child just does something, you really, really want to give the child the very best of slaps or something. And you know, you just burst into tongues and you speak in you pray in the Holy Ghost for a few minutes to calm down. And I mean, seriously, sometimes the children can actually test you, and the children will test, you know, all the boundaries, all the necessary boundaries. They will push all the buttons, but it also comes with maturity. I think maybe when I went over 40, I began to tell myself that, Kemi, you need to calm down. You really need to calm down. And, you know, part of it also came from from having a great support system around me. So sometimes if it becomes, if I just become so agitated, I can ask, oh, can you just, you know, watch the children for a bit? I just need to calm down. Maybe I need to just go for a walk, or, you know, I just need to calm down before I do something unthinkable. So for you to stop yelling, it is an intentional thing. And, you know, so we went from me just telling them that, how can I be saying something for 5 times before you actually think to do it? And then at some point I would say, okay, this is the point where I will start yelling and then my voice graduates to different octaves and they begin to understand it. And then I just totally, you know, just stopped yelling. And then my husband will say, sometimes my husband will just look at me and say, Pele, just stop yelling. He has a way of saying it. Sometimes I will find it very, very offensive sometimes, but I think I have just come to that point where I have just calmed down. And I think all mothers need to calm down. God is in control. God is in control. And it is an intentional thing. It doesn't just happen. You need to actually be telling yourself to calm down from the inside. It is.
It's intentional. That's very interesting. I like that. I like what you said. You know what? All moms need to calm down. And I don't know if anybody saw that video. That boy literally said to his mom, "Mom, you need to calm." He was even demonstrating, you need to calm down. And as mothers, we do need to calm down. We do need to calm down. I like some of the things that you have said here, that we need to nurture our children's gifts. We should not compare our children with one another. We should build up our children with affirmations, and we should not critique them. These are some of the things that you said. Now, I have a question here, and these are some of the questions that have come up. It said, what advice can you give to new moms? You know, because I know that in your experience, you have some moms that they would, I mean, I remember when I had my first child, 2 weeks later, I was crying for no reason. I just said, "Why are you crying?" "I don't know why I'm crying." You don't even know why you're crying. It's so overwhelming, you know. Can you also address the issue of getting over mommy guilt? Because sometimes, as in our day and age, I mean, in our parents' time, you had moms that were stay-at-home mom. Now you are working, you are doing this, you are chasing career, you are trying to sort out the children. Can you address that issue? What advice do you have for new moms? And can you address the issue of mom guilt? Like just feeling like I'm inadequate. You know, I'm inadequate. What do you have to say about that?
So I'll say again, and I will go back to that parable of the talents, where the master gave each of the servants what they could handle. I believe that if God knew that you couldn't handle a child, he wouldn't give you. So we need to talk to ourselves and, you know, give ourselves a good self-talk and tell ourselves that we are adequate. And I think also what also helps is to also involve your husband. You are not a single parent. So sometimes, most times actually, you will find that the mother becomes more responsible for the children, and then the man is just free and being a fine boy all over the place. Involve your husband. Sometimes some of us have not even, well, originally we're not supposed to ask for help. But in the kind of situation we have found ourselves, ask for help. Some men just feel that you women are just wired to be able to do everything. You are super women, with hidden capes in your wardrobe or something. Let us ask for help. And like I said, a great support system is also fantastic. A great support system will help you, to find your feet. Don't feel guilty that you have to hire a maid to sit with your child, because at the end of the day, your health also matters. The risk of postpartum illnesses becomes higher and higher, every day. So surround yourself with people. I remember that, many years ago when I had my daughter, my husband was going to the UK for a full-time MBA, and had asked me to come along. And part of what I saw was being overwhelmed by myself, because I will be feeling sorry for the poor man that has to study and has, this everything to do with his education, and I will be overwhelmed with the kids. But here I was in Lagos. I had my mom, I had a nanny, I had a driver. My elder sister was within earshot. If I just scream just a little bit, the whole world will appear at my house. And so I made my husband understand that I did not want to go and be put in that kind of situation. And so I stayed back here, and when he went to school. So let us learn to ask for help. There's always the talk of women supporting women. And this is where it all comes to bear. It's not supposed to be a word of mouth. It's supposed to be a love action, from other women. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people say, oh, can you watch the kids today, and then I can watch them tomorrow, so that you can have a bit of time, in your hands. So with the way everything is, we just need to find that time to also nurture our health. Because if you don't nurture your health, you will find yourself in very undesirable situations. So let's also learn to ask for help. Let's ask our spouses. I remember a couple of years ago, we went away for Christmas, and I remember telling everybody that this time is me time. I told them I am single. This holiday, I'm single. I don't have husband or children. And it was also because we had gone to a resort with friends, somewhere that was safe. And, we had, the children also had their own rooms. So when we were going, I gave them a phone. I gave them a phone and said, if you need me, call me. But this is me time for me. And so we should not feel guilty about taking care of ourselves. It's also part of the plan.
That's I like the realism of what you have said. And one of the things I always say is you have to be realistic. Somebody once said, you want to have it all. What is all? All is what is important to you. So as a mother, you need to sit down and ask yourself, look, somebody else is a housewife, and hence that's why she doesn't need help with her children or runs her business from home. But you have to work. You have to do this. So you have to get the necessary help that you require. One of the things I've also picked up from you in this conversation is the fact that it does get easier. Like now, your children are older, so you have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old, and so it's easy for you to say I'm going on holiday, I'm by myself, because your children have gotten older.
I'm actually looking forward to that.
So I can testify. I remember when your children went off to boarding school. I remember saying to you once, "Hey, Sister Kemi, I envy you, because it's like you're living the life." So it does get easier. Life is in seasons. So
there's time for everything. There's time. Absolutely. It's times and seasons. And absolutely. I would like to also say that let's not see it as a burden. Let's love our children genuinely, because when it comes from the place of love, it lightens the burden. Yes. Let's love them genuinely, because if you feel that, oh, raising children is work and all of that, by the time they're grown up and they're gone, you will be missing the time that you could have spent with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very, 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 very true. And I feel like sometimes we also need to let our children know how we feel. My older daughter is 7 years old, and I remember saying to her one night, just a few nights ago, it was 10 o'clock, I had sent her to bed and she refused to go to bed. Normal me, I would just yell and say, can you just go to bed? But that day, I just sat her down. I said, Beulah, I'm tired. I need me time. This is the only time I have to refresh, and so that mommy can be her best tomorrow morning. So by tomorrow, I can be your best mom. But if you don't give me time to relax, watch a movie, think, I cannot be my best. Do you know that simple conversation? She went to bed and we never had, she went to bed and went to sleep and did not come back to bother me. So sometimes children understand more, and she's only 7. I was quite impressed that day that she could understand. So sometimes children also understand if we can, like what Tolu said, come down to their level and help them to understand.
True.
So that's something very significant. And I'm going to ask, I don't know if you have any more questions. Tolu is still online. Sister Kemi is still online. Thank you so much, Sister Kemi. Please don't go yet in case you have any more questions. I'm just checking if there are any more questions. I'm just checking so that we can round off in the next few minutes. If for any reason you have a challenging child and you feel like, or it's not a challenging, a more unique child, that's the word, a more, so Tolu said, let's be specific in our words. If you feel like you have a more unique child or your situation is very peculiar and we haven't been able to address it during the course of this conversation, please send a message to Wife's Gist, and I'm sure that they can link you up with any of the speakers today, Sister Kemi, Tolu, anybody, or even Abiola, to help you, or some of the workers in Wife's Gist can kind of help and guide you. So please, if for any reason you feel like your situation is peculiar and your child is more unique, or your situation is more unique than what we've spoken about, please let us know. I can't see any more questions for now. I'm just going to go through the chat. Yes, Sister Kemi has addressed, you are grace for the children you have. You are enough. Sister Kemi has addressed that. Don't feel guilty taking care of yourself. Yes, don't feel guilty. I think that's something that is so significant. Don't ever feel guilty taking care of yourself. So without saying anything more, I'm going to say thank you very much, Sister Kemi. I'm really happy to have seen you today. Sister Kemi is mother hen. I always say, if you don't know what to do, if in doubt, go and ask Sister Kemi. That's always my rule. Go and ask Sister Kemi. Sister Kemi always knows the answers to anything. It's such an honor. Sister Kemi is the wife of Pastor TJ, who is the resident pastor at Elevation Church in Lekki. Sister Kemi, thank you so much. I wish I could sit here and keep asking you more questions, but I have run out of time, so that so I have the opportunity to do this again. So I will have to end this now. Thank you so much, Sister Kemi. Thank you so much, Tolu. Thank you so much, Abiola. Thank you so much, every single person. And now, as we round this up, hopefully in the next 2 minutes, like I said, if you have any questions, think you have a more peculiar situation, please send a message to Wife's Gist. The people that have come on board here can at any point help. And also pray. Pray, oh my God, I can't even emphasize this. In my own experience, there is a particular scripture that I've read. It says, my children will be taught of the Lord. And it's such a powerful scripture. I always say, there's so many things that I know that it's not my parents that taught me. It was God that taught me or sent somebody to teach me, that it was not my parents. So I'm saying, and I feel like it was my mother that was standing in the gap for me. Pray for your children. Pray. That can never be overemphasized. Where you feel like you're lacking or you're guilty, ask for God to teach them. He knows their personality, and He's the best person that will teach them. Say, my children, our children will be taught of the Lord. You are more than enough. Yes, you are more than enough. You're more than enough. Thank you so much, Tolu. And yes, learn from every single mother. Every time I meet another mother, I'm always excited to learn. Pick a new tip. I saw Tolu the other day, and I took a new tip from her. I'm always learning. We don't know it all. We don't know it all. So let's pick a new tip from everyone. Without saying anything else, okay, I have one last question. Right, somebody's asking this question. Okay, how do you raise children in the abroad? Okay, Sister Kemi, I don't know. Can I just ask, this is the last question, I was just rounding up, but somebody is asking, I mean, when you're in Nigeria, it's different, right? You have the helps, you have grandparents, you have your mom, but how do you raise children when you're abroad, where there is no help? How do you do that? Tolu, can you comment? Sister Kemi, can you comment? Anybody else, can you comment, please? Kindly help with that. That's the last question I am going to take. Because a lot of people are overwhelmed, especially abroad. You have to walk, you have to do it all. So how do you raise children abroad? Sister Kemi and Tolu, over to you.
Do you have something to say? Let me wait. How do you raise children abroad? How do you, I mean, you raise children, the way you raise your children in Nigeria might be a little bit different from how you raise them abroad. But I think generally moms need to get organized. This is what I've said to a couple of people who have said, it's so difficult around there. I don't have a nanny. No, you don't have a nanny. But what you can do is also to, maybe for things that are not as important, to lower your expectations from yourself. So I used to think that my house needed to be 100% clean and I wanted everything perfect. And one day my husband asked me a question. Are you expecting inspectors in your house? And I said, no. He said, so why don't you give yourself some peace? And I came to the point where I told myself, it's okay if my house is not clean all the time. Am I raising happy kids? Am I getting time with my family? Or am I spending all my time cleaning and running helter-skelter and doing? There's a scripture I shared a scripture with some friends a few days ago. Jesus said, come to me, all you are heavily burdened and heavily laden, and I will give you rest. God wants us to rest from all our stress. So I started by saying, get organized. How many things do I have to do today? Which is the most important to do? Where do I start from? And it's okay if I don't check off my to-do list today. I can continue tomorrow. So you have to get organized. Also leverage on relationships. Outsource where you can outsource. Don't beat yourself up if things are not perfect. So you can put your plates in the dishwasher from morning till evening, for instance, and then run your dishwasher at night. You don't have to wash every dish you use immediately. It doesn't mean that you're a dirty person. I say that my house is not always tidy. It's not the tidiest of houses. But I say that, well, if you come to my house and you see things untidy here and there, and then you're not happy. Sorry, we're busy making memories here. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but some things are just more important than other things. So sometimes it's opportunity cost. What is most important for me to do right now? Is it more important to sit down and maybe have a chat with my children right now, or am I going to spend my whole time cleaning? Also, it's about your mindset. How do you see it? Everything starts from the mind. If you say it's hard, then it's hard. If you say, I can do this, then you can do it. I put something in the chat. I said, you are graced for the children that you have. You're enough. And you can always tell yourself that I'm enough and I can do this. And when I'm too tired, I can take a break from everything and just put my feet up.
Thank you for that, Tolu.
So let me just add a bit to it. So a mentor of mine once told me, when I, even as a mother with children who were a little, grown up, she told me when I complained about being overwhelmed and all of that, she told me something. She said, everything you have to do, put them in 3 boxes. Box A is absolutely what you must do, what only you can do. I mean, if you have a young child, you know what you need, what you absolutely have to do. She said box B will have the things that when you have finished A and you have time, then you can go to B. You can do. She said C, box C is absolutely where you don't even want to go at all. You don't want to go at all because number 1 is a waste of your time. Number 2, you will waste the memories that you could have been creating, and as a young wife, I was always cleaning. At that time, we didn't have children. My husband used to say that, in fact, If you stayed on the ground for too long, I would pack you up. And so I learned, to prioritize what is most important. As long as my kids are not, in an unsafe place, as long as, they're not picking stuff from the floor and putting in their mouth, as long as they are not endangering themselves, then everything will be all right. So I would say that raising the children in the abroad, yes, slightly different from Nigeria, but at some point we all get to that point where it looks like we are the same. Right now, I don't have a maid in my house, and in this season, I have taught my children to clean, plus the boy, plus the girl. I don't believe that any child should do anything more different than the other. So if the boy wants his sister to help him make a meal, he needs to compromise and clean up when she's done. So, and children also learn all these things from picking up their toys by themselves to just guiding them to do the necessary things. Don't overwhelm yourself trying to be perfect. Perfection is a scam. What we should attain for is excellence. Perfection is a total scam. Don't even bother. It only puts you under unnecessary pressure, under unnecessary exhaustion. And always make sure that you have time to also refresh. You are a human being. You were not born to, sometimes when I say at some point, I came to an understanding with my family and said, the fact that we don't have a maid in this house does not make me your maid. It doesn't make me your maid. We all live in this house and we will share, equal, we will all pitch in to make sure that we all have our different responsibilities. My son knows that he has to take the trash out. He has to make sure that the generator is always, ready for use and all of that. And the girl knows that there are a few other, chores that they need to do, and they have to do them every day. There are some days that I say, okay, I excuse everybody from the job. Mommy is the one on duty today, and I just go out and do it. But don't overwhelm yourself unnecessarily. I once stayed with a friend of mine in the US for a while, and I just had to experience what life was, living abroad. And one of the things that I learned from her was take things one day at a time. I mean, plan. I have a notebook for everything. I have a notebook for chores. We have Excel sheets for meals. Be organized, just like Tolu said. Be organized and don't overwhelm yourself. My friend calls in maybe a cleaner to do like a deep cleaning once a month. She saves towards it, but it gives her, some respite instead of, constantly cleaning and all of that. So now even I have a cleaner who comes in twice a week, comes in, does deep cleaning, and she's gone. And so don't overwhelm yourself, and then ask for help whenever you need it.
I think that's thank you so much, Tolu, and thank you so much, Sister Kemi. I think what you said is quite significant. I have personally experienced both, and I think both of you can testify. I'm very new in the abroad life. My children are very young, 7 and 4, and the first thing I learned here is you need a community, a support system. So I remember when I got here, in fact, Tolu was the one that came to my rescue one particular day, my first week here, and I was losing my hair. And that day, all she did was come and give me a hug. That was, you need that support system, somebody that understands what you're going through. And I remember another particular family, all they did for me when we're settling down is they just said, bring them, leave them for 4 hours and go and do what you have to. So you need that support system. Also, one of the things I've learned here is no child is too young to get involved. My youngest child is 4 years old. And I remember my first weekend doing laundry. I literally almost lost my mind because I sat there doing laundry for hours and hours and hours. And then I prayed about it. I told God, I said, God, I can't be doing laundry like this. This is tiring. Yes, washing machine, but who is ironing? Who is folding? The following weekend, God gave me wisdom. Tell the children to sort out the clothes. 4-year-old and 7-year-old. Oh yeah, sort it out. Daddy's clothes one place, mommy's, and they had fun doing it. Socks one place. Next weekend, I told the 4-year-old, your work is to turn the clothes from the back to the front. From just doing that, now laundry only takes me 1 hour, 30 minutes because one child is sorting, one child is turning the clothes from the back to the front. And so it makes you realize sometimes as parents, we discredit the work that children can do. You know, from engaging my 4-year-old to just turn the clothes from the back to the front. Guess what? She has fun doing it. I buy myself some time. I create a bonding time. I teach them that work is not for mommy, it's for all of us. Now, my 7-year-old, her work in the house, I tell her, empty the dishwasher. When it's done washing, can you empty it? Yes, you cannot put it in the cabinet, but can you empty it and put it on the table? And guess what? She does it with joy. So sometimes don't discredit the abilities of children. Meet them at their level, give them tasks according to their level, and let them get involved. Because now I'm appreciating that being in the abroad, it's also a perfect way to raise your children. It's a perfect way to give them tools that will help them for life, because now you don't have any nanny to help you. So I know it can be tough. I know it can be hard. The tips Sister Kemi has said here and Tolu has said here is involve your children, ask for help, build a community around yourself. Your house is your house. Build memories in your house. Don't focus on getting the house clean like you have an inspector coming. You know, also, Sister Kemi has mentioned the fact that, you know what, get your children involved, boy child, girl child, wherever you find them, get them involved and pace yourself. You can't do everything. Honestly, some days, there's one day I've been to my kitchen and someone said, oh, my husband said there's place in the kitchen. I just said, look, I'm tired today. I'm done. And he said, you're going to leave the kitchen like that. I said, well, did I leave it like that 1 week ago? And he literally looked at me and laughed. I said, because I'm tired. I can be tired sometimes, you know. And so literally that is one thing I want one mom to take away. And before we close, I'm going to ask that we take some affirmations. These affirmations are very, very powerful. I mean, I don't know. I think I learned it from a few egmos that I have. You know, sometimes we say things to our children. Are you naughty? Are you stupid? We say those words, and those words are seeds. These affirmations are a practice for us as parents to pronounce over our children. So we're going to take the affirmation. Before that, I'm just going to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining the Wives Gist platform today. Wives Gist is a community of women with a passion for sharing practical wisdom nuggets to help wives and wives-to-be enjoy marriage and fulfill their purpose as intended by God. You can join today on Instagram or subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can also connect with Tolu Adegbite on tolu.adegbite online on Instagram, and Sister Kemi at the Kemo Lee online. You can also connect with Abiola Adedeji on Chronicles of an Autistic Mom as well. And just to chip this in, Tolu has a fantastic platform that I have been following actively as well. Lagos, Canada Mom is also a good platform to connect with Tolu on. If you need to talk to someone, please send us an email at wivesgist@gmail.com. Now, I'm going to say thank you so much for joining. Thank you to the Wives Gist for organizing this platform. It's been so great and it's been so real. It's been my pleasure moderating. And you can just recite these words, repeat these words after us. My children are happy. Am I taking this? My children are happy. They are healthy. They are strong. They are wise. They are intelligent. Can we say that over and over again? My children are happy. My children are healthy. My children are strong. My children are wise. They are intelligent. You can put the name of every child there, whether your child's name is Bukola or Demi. You can put the name of the child there. Put the name of the child there and say, my child is happy. My child is wise. My child is strong. My child is beautiful. As we go forth, don't forget to pray for your children. And we see you next time on Wives Gist. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a pleasure. My name is Olami Dotun, and it's been an honor to moderate this session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.